Somewhere on Earth is off to discover Croatia. This country in the southern Balkans, with its population of 4.5 million inhabitants, is a land of contrasts, extending from the Mediterranean to Central Europe, and is surprisingly rich in natural wonders. Petra Kovac-Conrad, a scuba diving enthusiast and geologist, is constantly traveling the country to explore the underground realm in search of a strange and mysterious creature, the Proteus, found nowhere but in the darkness of Balkan caves. The Kornati Islands seem far removed from the world. Sebastian Dao, an inveterate sailor and adventure raid organizer from Brittany, was attracted to this stark environment and has made a simple life for himself here in Croatia, living in harmony with nature. The Kopacki, located on the Danube in eastern Croatia, is a vast wetland sanctuary for Europe's largest wild animals and thousands of birds. It's also where Goran Šafarek, a biologist and nature photographer, feels most at home.
People think that the sea is the most beautiful feature of Croatia. Yes, it's what made the country known worldwide, but it has other riches, and not many people know about that.
This region of water and forests is protected from all human activity. For centuries, this floodplain of the Danube served as hunting grounds for the Austro-Hungarian nobility. You don't necessarily have to travel to the ends of the earth to get a close look at large wild animals. This huge natural marshland has always been one of Europe's richest wildlife refuges. Located in Slavonia, in the eastern part of Croatia, the Kopacki is one of the largest wetlands of the Balkans. Goran Šafarek is about to rendezvous with the unknown. He has come here to observe nature and live in harmony with the creatures of Kopacki. He even seems part of the fauna himself.
I'm in very close touch with nature. It stirs very strong feelings in me, particularly when I'm alone in such a wild setting. It's a marvelous feeling. My mind is alert to the sounds, the odors, the water lapping, the mud. When all my senses are alive like this, it makes me want to discover new things.
Goran loves the Kopacki and is an ardent defender of this biotope. He studied biology and is a nature photographer as well.
The park abounds with life. At any moment, eagles could sweep right by you. There are all sorts of birds. There are deer. It's an explosion of life in all its splendor. I love being here. I'm a hunter, but I hunt images. To get a good shot, you have to get close, and that's not easy. One method is hiding out. You have to be familiar with the animal's behavior. Deer have very good hearing and a keen sense of smell. Boars as well. They're always snuffing everything around them, so each animal has its own approach to its environment. You have to work alone when you're shooting. Be attentive, patient, and quiet. I like to go off on my own. It's good anti-stress therapy. I love lying out in the wild, waiting for the animals. When I'm stalking, I'm alone with my thoughts. I just love that.
Today, Goran is going out with his friend Tibor, an ornithologist. They're going to do a count of a colony of wading birds, gray herons and night herons.
They're over there.
If we make a move, they'll fly off and leave their nests.
And how long before they come back?
If we move off, they'll come right back because they're brooding.
What do we do? Try to get closer?
Yeah, we'll get closer, but be really careful. Right now, we're in the middle of the spring migration. The birds come here from Africa and the Mediterranean to nest and brood. And right now, the season's first colonies are settling in. Some are already brooding. Others are building their nests. It's one of the two best periods of the year for observing them.
This is one of the entries to the Kopachki Rit. On the right side, you have the Danube. Serbia is on the other side, and straight ahead is the nature park. No one ever comes here. It's really wild. I use the same trails that the animals use. I'm nervous every time I come to the Kopachki Rit. It's magic. This is the realm of the animals. I always have to be ready with my camera. All sorts of surprises can pop up. It's quite something because at any instant, you could find yourself face to face with a deer or a boar. You have to be on your toes.
In the Kopachki Rit, scientists have recorded nearly 300 species of birds. The wetlands is an inexhaustible source of images for Goran, the photographer. Thanks to photography, Goran has gotten to know the naturalists, hunters, and fishermen of the Danube. He knows all the park rangers. He also runs into poachers sometimes. Over the years, he has become a go-between for the people of the wetland who would seem to have nothing in common. The rangers know all the nooks and crannies of the forest, and they're glad to share their little secrets with Goran.
People often have a romantic image of nature, but it can get very cold and very hot out here. There are swarms of mosquitoes, they get into your eyes and mouth, but the pleasure of photography outweighs all that. I can hear geese in the distance. It's their bedtime. There are other birds over there. You have to know how to identify the sounds of nature. I know that these are geese on this side and herons over there. Right away, I know what's going on around me. Humans can't see at night, but we can hear nature and smell the aromas. You just have to be alert. You just have to listen.
Dobar dan, Dalibore.
Hey there, Dalibor. Everything ready?
Yeah, we're all set. Hop on. You'll see. You're going to really feel the wind, like on a motorcycle.
Kopacki Rit is vast, 17,000 hectares. It's hard to grasp the extent when you're down on the ground. You have to fly over it to get the bird's eye view. From the air, you can see just how many waterways and reed groves there are in the forest.
Every spring, when the snow melts in the eastern Alps, the Danube rises and floods the park. This year, the spring thaw is late, but in a few weeks, the plains of Kopacki Rit will give birth to an abundance of wildlife.
I always loved nature films. In high school, I really enjoyed the sciences. Later, I majored in biology at the university, and that's where it all started. I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world: Africa, South America, Asia. Then I realized that Croatia itself has a wealth of beauty and riches, and that's how I got started here.
Goran has become one of Croatia's foremost image hunters. His work has been published in scientific, travel, and hunting reviews. Last year, he was honored as one of the top 100 personalities making for a better Croatia. Goran lives according to the changing of the seasons. Nature imposes its own rhythm on his life. The photographer never misses a chance to make an early morning face-to-face with this wild world.
For me, it's an art. Getting as close as possible to nature and just blending in with it. As a biologist, I've always preferred this world. I see myself as a predator, as a sort of lone wolf, because to get a decent shot, you have to be as quiet and as invisible as possible. It's better when you're alone. I'm a lone wolf out stalking images. Animal photography is extremely demanding and can be very frustrating as well. But when the encounter does take place, it's a magnificent moment. There are some people whose dream is meeting a star. For me, running into a boar, a deer, or any animal at a distance of 10 meters is just unbelievable. There's nothing that can beat it.
Flooded by the waters of the Danube, the Kopečki Rit is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. Goran has a front row seat on these vast territories, and thanks to photography, he can share its most beautiful aspects. One needs to know how to melt into this exceptional environment to capture the life of this untamed land. Petra Kovac-Konrad loves mountains and the world of silence. The list of her exploits in her field could make your head spin, but the extremes she has conquered are not on the maps. Petra's universe is invisible, extreme, and subterranean.
We're south of the Velebit Range, on the Chernopac Mountain. This is the wildest part. There's nothing here, just nature and forests. It also has Croatia's largest network of caves, 23 kilometers long.
Speleology is a quest in dark labyrinths and silent caverns, leading to the depths of one's inner being. Jules Verne imagined his voyage to the center of the Earth as a descent into an underworld inhabited by legendary monsters. For Petra, each expedition into the bowels of the planet is a voyage of initiation. Speleology is both a scientific and mental adventure. Petra, a geologist who enjoys a good challenge, is fascinated by the subterranean world. She plumbs the depths of these mysteries and explores the icy waters of Croatia's countless underground rivers.
Speleology is a very special passion because you move away from the known world and descend into a totally different environment. When you're caving, you're cut off from the outside. When we're underground, we're kind of in our own little world, and we can enjoy that. We can do what we like in this world that belongs to us.
Here at the Baradina Refuge, Petra meets up with some friends from the Zagreb Caving Club. They're going to make an expedition to the underground Pinchinova River in the depths of the partially unexplored cave. Petra also works in a geology laboratory. Every 2 months, she comes to observe one of the world's rarest animals, the Proteus, an amphibian that lives only in the Balkans. Every caving trip is a full-fledged expedition. Petra does more than just plumb the depths of the earth. For the past 8 years, she's been exploring Croatia's underground rivers along with Vedran and his father Branko. These 3 speleologists form a very tight-knit group.
Danas će nas biti 9.
We're 9 cavers here today, but only 3 of us will be diving. You have to count at least 2 people per diver to help bring the gear down. It means a lot of organization.
Treba puno organizacije. Danas idemo istraživati dalje.
We're going to push further into the cave, explore new zones. That's why we're so concentrated.
The entrance to the Pinchinova cavern is out in the country, in Istria, not far from the Slovenian border. Petra and Vedran are hoping to find some Proteus there. But before they can do any diving, the team of cavers has to descend 60 meters below the surface down a narrow shaft. Vedran gives some last-minute safety instructions. Every dive has a certain risk.
When we're here, we'll still be attached. It's the bottom of the shaft. And here, you have a really muddy patch. Then it starts sloping down. Here's where it narrows. The last time there was a depth of 25 to 28 meters of water, I think. Then there's a very narrow passage, about this wide, just wide enough to get through.
If you see that it's fantastic, I can wait 5 minutes to give you the time to come back and get me or not. Okay?
Right.
I'll wait 5 minutes at the entrance.
Right, wait a while.
Okay, I'll wait.
If I don't come back, you head back up.
It's never routine. Each expedition is unique, and we have to prepare it in a specific way. We never know what we'll run into.
Like mountaineers tackling a peak, a first team of speleologists heads into the cavern to rig the walls and ensure that the divers get down safely. They have to bring more than 300 kilos of gear from outside to the underground base camp about 30 meters lower down. Each member of the team knows exactly what they have to do. Vedran, the dive master, makes sure that the operation goes smoothly. The descent will take 2 hours. An expedition like this calls for a lot of teamwork, which is the very philosophy of caving.
We've been diving together since 2006. We started out exploring a spring that Vedran's father showed us. Now, I'm writing my geology thesis on that cave, and we've been diving together ever since. It's best to always dive with the same people, partners you get along with and who you can communicate best with underwater.
Petra, Vedran, and his father are very concentrated. They've already crossed over into their own world. Underground, the air is thick with tension. This is the final vertical shaft before the river. Down here, 60 meters below the surface of the earth, things are beginning to get tense for the divers. The plunge into inky darkness, a feeling of excitement mixed with anxiety.
Mountain climbing and caving, they're almost the same thing, but I go underground, and the feeling you get when scaling the summits, well, I get it when reaching the depths. That's how it is. I descend.
To get to the first chamber, the divers have to make their way through a gallery about 20 meters long. During a previous expedition, Petra and Vedran spotted a new opening at the end of this tunnel. They hope to find traces of animal life and new specimens of the Proteus on the underground riverbed. The explorers advance slowly to avoid clouding the cavern's crystal-clear water. If their flippers should graze the cave walls and disturb the centuries-old sediment, it could reduce the visibility to a few centimeters, compromise the success of their mission, and even endanger their lives.
It's really an amazing feeling. We're like astronauts floating in weightlessness. Gravity disappears. A feeling you can only get in space or underwater. With each dive, particularly when we're exploring, there's a tinge of stress as you pay out the guideline. Fear is a healthy reaction. You should be frightened. It keeps you alert regarding safety. Every time we enter a new zone, we feel the secret magic of the place. There's mystery. We don't know what we're going to find. It spurs us on to go even further.
It's a foray into the unknown, like an inverse climb. Similar to mountaineers roped together, the lead diver pays out the guideline, their sole connection to the light of day. Diving beneath the surface of the Earth is a fragile pulsation of life, an extreme voyage, as mental as it is instinctive. The slightest error can be fatal.
One of the worst situations I ever had to face was in a spring near Orgulin. I found myself all alone during a dive 20 meters down, and all of a sudden my primary light went out. I couldn't even see how much oxygen I had left. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. That lasted 3 to 5 minutes. I tried to locate the line to find my way out, but I couldn't. So all I could do was wait until someone came to get me. It lasted 3 to 5 minutes, I'm not sure. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So that was the worst experience of my life.
To mi je jedno od najgorih.
They didn't find the passage they were looking for this time, but they've pushed to the end of the line and the end of their oxygen. Now they have to make their way to the surface to get back to the rest of the crew. Each expedition is a unique adventure, even for Petra, Vedran, and Branko, 3 accomplished divers. 2 years ago, they set the Croatian record for cave diving.
Vedran and I dove in the country's deepest cave, the Lukina Yama. We went down 1,390 meters and stayed down there for 5 days. From there, we dove every day to explore the cave, and that's when we dove to a depth of 60 meters. Hey, it's still light out.
Petra and Vedran have been exploring Croatia's caves for nearly 10 years now. Together, they've traveled thousands of kilometers to survey as many caves as possible. Croatia is a paradise for geologists and cave divers. Petra, 35, has become one of the best in her field, and she continues to pursue her quest with the same enthusiasm.
We're lucky in Croatia, for nature here is relatively unspoiled. Everything came to a halt during the war. In fact, for 10 to 15 years, there's been no investment. People left and there's no heavy industry, so nature has been preserved.
Tako da je priroda ostala dobro očuvana. Tu se nalazimo na području.
This is the region of limestone rivers. All the rivers, all the water around here is drinkable. That's quite rare in Europe these days, unfortunately.
Petra is finishing up a thesis in geology. Diving is an ideal way for her to combine her love of underground exploration with her laboratory research. For tens of thousands of years, the river water has been sculpting countless cavities in the limestone rock, forming what is called karst, which is a landscape of limestone dissolved by flowing water. Croatia has hundreds of rivers and streams that vanish into the bowels of the earth and never reach the sea. Petra and Vedran carry on with their investigation. They're going to look for Proteus in this stream that disappears beneath a limestone cliff. they spot a first Proteus in their beam of light. A strange creature. It's blind, it has tiny paws and external gills. For ages, this cave-dwelling creature, which resembles a salamander, has been called the human fish on account of its skin color. They also call it the baby dragon. In times past, when there was flooding, the underground rivers would carry the Proteus to the surface rivers. When the Balkan country folk would see them, they took them as proof that great dragons existed deep within the earth. This animal remains an enigma. Its metabolism allows it to go for quite a long time without eating. Scientists are eager to pierce the mysteries of the Proteus. It is proof that life can exist in a pitch-black environment that has remained unchanged for millions of years. The Proteus can live for up to 100 years in the inky silence of the Balkan caves.
We're quite lucky because we have an infinite field of exploration. Even if we were to spend our entire lives cave diving, we still wouldn't exhaust the possibilities. Unfortunately, there aren't many cave divers in Croatia because it's expensive and rather dangerous. We run into extreme conditions of cold and darkness, and there's the risk of getting lost. That's why not many people practice this type of diving. But for us, there'll always be new spaces to discover.
In Croatia, there are some 200,000 caves. At present, only 8,000 have been surveyed. Petra will be able to continue gliding through the fissures and chasms of the earth for a long time to come. Sebastian Dao landed in the Cornati Islands 10 years ago, when his dreams of the sea drew him to the shores of the Adriatic. In winter, the islands are practically deserted. The climate is harsh and life rather austere. This is exactly what Sebastian came looking for in this region of Croatia. Early spring is an ideal time to visit these islands and map out future sailing trips. Over time, Sebastian has made a place for himself in the little Dalmatian fishing community, where he's known as the Frenchman of the Cornatis.
Thanks to my sailing, I've been accepted by the locals. I teach the youngsters how to sail, and that touches a sensitive chord here. You have to take the time to get to know the people here. The Dalmatians are a bit gruff when you first meet them. You have to tame them. If you take your time, you'll find they're people who like to live well. They like good things. They're rather down to earth. And that suits me just fine.
Ça me convient parfaitement.
Oh, Mariana, Slatka mala Mariana, tebe ću čekat ja dok svane dan.
The islands, scattered along the Adriatic, are for the most part uninhabited. There are 147 of them off the rugged, intimidating Dalmatian coast. This is an ideal domain for Sebastian, who ever since his childhood in Brittany has always been in contact with the sea.
My relationship with the sea comes largely from my parents. My father was a biological engineer at the French Oceanic Institute. I was always in contact with engineers, biologists, and technicians who were working with the sea, like how to repopulate the seabeds, how to study the animal life. That was my first contact with the sea before getting bitten by the sailing bug. Now it's become my profession. Thanks to these people, I realized I was born to live outdoors. I was made to be on the water. It's really hard for me to live away from the sea. I have to feel it. I like to live out in the nature, with the wind, the waves, with the movement of the boats, with all the marine life. These are the elements that make up my life.
Here in the heart of the islands, Sébastien opens the doors to a realm that he knows well. He has discovered here a unique environment, swept by violent winds. In the course of his sailing, he has become the tracker of an invisible material, the Bura. To the north, the Cornatis are sheltered by the imposing Velebit Massif, which peaks at more than 1,700 meters. This is a totally different world, a world of mountains and forest, the realm of solitude and icy cold, birthplace of a wind notorious for being one of the planet's most powerful, the Bura. It can reach a record speed of 300 kilometers an hour. When the Bura is blowing, life comes to a halt. On land and on sea, Sébastien likes to face off with these extreme conditions and the violence of the storms that regularly buffet the region. Here he has found what he needs to satisfy his thirst for nature in its wildest state. Sébastien finds his equilibrium in confronting the force of the elements.
We're not very far from the sea. We're just on the inland side of the Velebit mountain that separates us from the sea. And there's a completely different climate here. It's continental, whereas by the sea, there's an oceanic climate. The sea warms the atmosphere. And here, with the masses of cold air coming down from the north, the temperature on the plateau drops way down.
They say that the Bura carries away the warm water of the sea, and that it never lasts more than 7 days. It also changes the color of the mountains. In just a few hours, a new landscape has come into existence. These are the last snowfalls of the spring.
Si on ne prend pas les précautions de lire la météo, on peut se faire coincer
If you don't check the weather beforehand,
par ces vents-là qui
you can get into real trouble with these winds that can easily blow at 150 to 200 kilometers an hour
peuvent amener de la neige
and bring snow where just a few hours before, the weather was fine. If you're not prepared for this kind of cold, it can be fatal. The Croatian seafarers and mountain folk alike fear this wind.
Sebastian has learned how to cope with these angry storms, and he'd rather face the legions of clouds in the mountains than at sea. Like any sailor worth his salt, Sebastian knows that he has to hunker down and wait out the storm. He can sometimes be stuck for a week while waiting for the wind to let up. Here, Sebastian has already been under the thumb of the Bura for 2 days.
La Bura, c'est un vent typique de la Croatie.
The Bora is a typical wind of Croatia. It starts in the mountains as a mass of cold air that pours down the slopes and gives rise to winds that are often very violent. And it can happen at any time of the year. Out at sea, it churns up the water. It's a very irregular and very sudden wind.
The wind has dropped off and the sea has calmed down. At last, Sebastian can take to sea again. For 10 years now, he's been organizing sailing raids in the Kornati Islands for navigators like him in search of simplicity and authenticity. Sebastian likes nothing better than the simple pleasure of sailing for its own sake. He's living out his childhood dream, as if he had signed a pact with the sea, promising a life of complete freedom. When I set out to sea, I'm taken by the elements. I forget my worries. Well, if I have any. As soon as I'm out in nature, nothing else counts. I feel that I'm free to sail when I want and where I want. Sebastian has decided to bivouac for the night on the little island with the Telechica lighthouse that overlooks the Kornati National Park. This is the first time he's landed in this spot. The island is tiny, but it's ideally situated as a stopover in the heart of the Kornatis. Before nightfall, Sebastian takes some time to scout out the island. It will be a destination of future sailing raids.
If you count the number of nights I've spent outdoors in a tent or under the stars since I've been doing raids, it turns out that I've spent more than 3 years of my life out in the nature, here in Croatia and in other countries. Every night, it's just magical because you're so close to nature. You have a fantastic sky strewn with stars. It's been 3 years of adventure, and each camp is a new challenge, so it makes you want to keep doing it. It's simply enchanting.
It's the beginning of the summer season. The first tourists will soon be arriving in the Kornati Islands. While summer lasts, life in this little paradise will move at a faster pace. In sharing this exceptional archipelago, Sébastien is passing on his passion for the Adriatic Sea, the sea where he has decided to drop anchor.